Top 5 NFL head coaches of all time. We are back to our series of top 5 either position. Now we're doing coaches in the NFL. Top 5. Look, there's a lot of ways and a lot of places that you can go with this thing. A lot of ways and a lot of places that you can go. For me, I don't think it's that difficult. I don't think it's that difficult at all. And here's my list from 5 to 1. 5, I got Don Shula. Shula won so many games. I mean, and it was earlier. There's probably a bunch of people on TikTok that don't even know who the hell I'm talking about when I say Don Shula. But Don Shula coached the Baltimore Colts. Yes, the Baltimore Colts and the Miami Dolphins. He happens to be the all-time leader in victories for the NFL. He's got the most. That's the record that Belichick was trying to break. Don Shula, number 5. Well, he also happened to coach the last undefeated team in the NFL, the 1972 Dolphins, who might very well be the most disrespected and underrated NFL team of all time. Might just be of all time. But I got Shula at 5. At 4, I've got Andy Reid. Andy Reid is at number 4 and could be moving up fast, people. He could be moving up fast. You know, he has put himself in a category for not only all the work that he did at Philly. That was good. But what he has done in Kansas City is nothing short of phenomenal. Taking a middling franchise and turning it into the best franchise or the best team in the league. He's got the best quarterback, but he was a part of getting the best quarterback. So, and what he has done with that franchise, you don't really hear anybody except disgruntled people like a Le'Veon Bell, but you don't really hear anybody bad-mouthing Andy Reid. You don't. So, Andy Reid, number 4. And look, depending on what happens this year, he may be 3rd. He might move up to 3rd. But at 3rd, number 3 right now, I got Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh, basically the innovator, the designer of the West Coast offense. San Francisco was phenomenal. He had a big hand in building that team. Bill Walsh was people all the time, he's an offensive genius. He's an offensive genius. Bill Walsh was, again, a lot of people on TikTok, if you're younger, you may not know who he is. He was the coach that coached Joe Montana. That should be all you need to know. He was the guy who coached Joe Montana. So Bill Walsh, I got him in at number 3. Number 2, how this guy, and look, you are going to call me a homer. I really don't care. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches of all time. Underrated. And the man won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years is Chuck Noll. How Chuck Noll gets underrated is beyond me. But he does. He absolutely does. I don't get it. It's almost like, well, the Steelers had all those good guys. Who do you think was helped put that team together? It was him. Oh, yeah. Also, I had to coach it. Everybody acts like, well, if you just have talent, you can win. That's not how this works. How talented was Oakland back in those days? The Steelers were beating them. The Cowboys, the Steelers were beating them. There were plenty of teams that were super talented. But the Steelers would beat them. Chuck Noll, again, 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves for how good a coach that he actually was. And this is a man with 4 Super Bowls. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. He doesn't get the credit for being that good. But it is what it is, man. It is what it is. And then lastly, Bill Belichick. Look, there are going to be some people that say, oh, it was more Tom Brady than it was him. Yeah, not for those first 3 Super Bowls it wasn't. Stop it. Stop. That defense that he put together helped them win, led them to winning. Jiminy Christmas. But just basically stopped the greatest show on turf. Just put a halt to that offense and just said, nah. Now, granted, he cheated. Let's not kid ourselves. He cheated. I mean, if you know what their signals are and you know what the plays are going to be based on formations because you've recorded it, that makes it easier. I mean, it makes it easier. But the bottom line is you can't take it away. 6 Super Bowls. I mean, and what he did in the free agency era makes it even more difficult. But, it was Bill Belichick. It was Bill Belichick. And you can't deny that. You just can't deny that. People want to talk to me about Vince Lombardi, and they got, they named the trophy after Vince Lombardi, and that's true. But here's my thing. Vince Lombardi coached when they didn't let everybody play. So we can leave it at that. Unless you want to dive into that, everybody wasn't allowed to play when Vince Lombardi was coaching. You would have 3 or 4, I can just say it. You might have 5 blacks that were on your team back in those days. They didn't want to have too many. So, and it's not his fault. I mean, it wasn't his doing. So I don't want you to think, well, Brian's blaming Vince Lombardi. I'm not blaming him. He didn't have anything to do with that. Actually, I think he was a champion to get more African Americans on the field and on a team. But it's kind of like the whole Babe Ruth thing. I'm never going to say Babe Ruth is the best baseball player I've ever seen because he didn't play against all the best players. Back in those days, they just didn't have as many. All the best players weren't allowed to play. Again, it's not his fault. You can't blame him. And people, please don't blame Vince Lombardi. It was not his doing. But truth is truth. Truth is truth. So it just kind of is what it is, man. It is what it is. So, but Belichick 1, Chuck Noll 2, Bill Walsh 3, Andy Reid number 4, Don Shula number 5. So that's who I got. That's who I got as the top 5 best coaches in NFL history. I think it's a solid list. Yeah, and my man over here, my man Paul Holliger over on YouTube, he said you could almost put Tom Landry in the conversation. There is no question. Let me just say this. You have to put Tom Landry in the conversation. You have to have him in the conversation. Now, is he up there with those guys? Debatable. Like, is he in the top 5? It's debatable. But he's in that conversation for sure. Because Dallas was outstanding. He was outstanding. So, yeah, you can put Tom Landry. You should put Tom Landry in that conversation. You should. Y'all think about this. I can't remember what staff, but it was Vince Lombardi was the defense or the offensive coordinator, and Tom Landry was the defensive coordinator. Unbelievable that Vince Lombardi and Tom Landry were on the same staff together. How often was that? How good was that staff? Lord have mercy. Yeah, Papa Hallis. I was going to say, I thought that's where it was in Chicago. I'm like, Lord have mercy. You got Hallis, Lombardi, and Landry all on the same staff? Even at Christmas. Shoo. Paul Brown. Was it Paul Brown or Hallis? I thought it was Hallis. But I don't have Paul Brown or Hallis in as far as the best coaches, and for the same reason of Lombardi. The same reasons as Lombardi. So, no. No. And again, nothing against them. I'm not saying they caused it or anything like that, but truth is truth. Truth is just truth. Marv Levy is not up there. And again, a lot of you guys already know, I'm not the guy that says, well, Marv Levy's not in the top 5 or top 10 of coaches, and that means he stinks. That's not what it means. Not to me. I'm never that guy. Just because you're not in the top 5 or 10 or something doesn't mean that you weren't great. Doesn't mean that at all. So, It just means there were others that were better. Nothing wrong with that. Bill, we had Chuck Noll at number 2, my guy. Nope, not Parcells. But not Parcells. Parcells is great, probably in the top. Not probably. He's in the top 10, but he's not in the top 5. He's not in the top 5. So, not in the top 5. Love him, but not in the top 5. John Madden didn't coach long enough. So, no. And he's not in the same caliber as these guys when it comes to that. So, I love Parcells, though. He's a good coach. He was a great coach, not a good coach. Great coach. But sometimes there's got to be levels to stuff. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be levels. And if we're dealing with levels, Parcells doesn't come in at the levels that these other guys do. So he just doesn't come in at the same level as those other guys do. And to recap, again, Bill Belichick was number 1. Chuck Noll was number 2. Bill Walsh was number 3. Andy Reid was number 4. And Don Shula, number 5. Number 5. So now, number 5, I had trouble with 5. I had trouble with 5 because I wanted to put Joe Gibbs in there. I had trouble with 5 because Joe Gibbs won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. That's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. In an era, the first one really wasn't, but the second 2 were in an era where quarterbacks were important. Not as important as they are today, but they were pretty important. But they had Mark Rippon won a quarterback or won a Super Bowl. Mark Rippon. Whew. He won a quarterback. Joe Gibbs. Yeah, there you go. There you go, Mr. Bill Peterson. Absolutely. Yeah. Joe Gibbs, I wanted to put him in there, but I thought, the guy that's got the all-time record in wins, couple of Super Bowls, he deserves to be in it. But Joe Gibbs, it's almost 5 and 5B because Joe Gibbs was a great coach. He did it twice. Twice. Winning without free agency was easier, though. Winning without free agency is easier. Winning in free agency is harder. Yeah. Winning with free agency and a salary cap is harder than it was back in the day. Because back then, you got a guy, you drafted him, you developed him, and he stayed. So, somebody says Belichick, Walsh, Reed, Lombardi, Noll, Shula, Landry, Gibbs. I don't disagree. I don't dislike that. I don't dislike it at all. I still wouldn't have Lombardi on there. But if that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the top 8 coaches, yeah. Yeah. That's about right. I don't know if Reed's still in his prime, but I know Reed's still going. He's still going. I mean, he don't show no signs of slowing down either. So he doesn't show any signs of slowing down. And that's what I was saying earlier, Aaron. I said, if Reed wins another one, he'll be past Walsh. And I don't know if I'd put him past Noll, but maybe. Maybe. First of all, if the Chiefs win it this year, yeah, I'd have to put him past Noll. You win 3 Super Bowls in a row in free agency era, and then you've won 4, what would it be, 4 in 6 years? Or 4 in 7 years? Yeah. He would have to be second. He would have to be second. So, Noll had no free agency and less teams. Okay. But he still won 4 in 6 years. Nobody else has done that. Top 5 linebacker or inside linebackers, or just say middle linebackers of all time. Top 5. A lot of people out there. This is my list. We'll go from 5 to 1. 5 to 1. Junior Seau, number 5. Junior Seau, number 5. LT is an outside linebacker. He doesn't qualify. Ronnie Lott, you're not watching enough football if you think Ronnie Lott. He was a safety. Number 4, Jack Lambert. Jack Lambert, number 4. Great Pittsburgh Steeler. Was basically the first really good coverage linebacker in the National Football League. Number 3, Mike Singletary. Singletary was good. Not good. Singletary was great. One of the most overrated defenses in the history of professional football, the 85 Bears. And I know y'all are going to come after me. Come after me. They were ahead of their time until they weren't. And they were so good, they could only muster one title. Number 2 is Dick Butkus. Dick Butkus, number 2. He was a man's man. That was back when you could kill a man on a football field, and that was okay. You know, when Dick Butkus played, when you could literally kill somebody, and all they did was scrape them up, moved them off the field, and you went to the next play. I know that seems harsh. Oh, man, B, what are you talking about? That's how they played football back in those days. Just whatever worked. If you got to twist a guy's neck to get him down, then you do it. Break a guy. I mean, they played brutal football. Just brutal football. That was Dick Butkus. And he was big, and he was fast, and he was mean. People don't realize that about Dick Butkus. He was a big dude playing middle linebacker. And number 1 is Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis. So, Ray Lewis was crazy good, super fast, smart, understood where people were going to be. He understood the game of football. Ray Lewis. And because middle linebacker is a thinking man's position for the most part, and he was a thinking man's linebacker to go along with all his physical attributes. He was that good. So let's go in order. Number 1, Ray Lewis. Number 2, Dick Butkus. Number 3, Mike Singletary. Number 4, Jack Lambert. Number 5, Junior Seau. I think Seau is underrated. I think Junior Seau is underrated. I think for a lot because he played all those years in San Diego for the Chargers. But I think Seau goes underrated. He does. Luke Kuechly, I really like. I thought about putting him in at number 5. I think both Seau and Kuechly are better than Urlacher. And not to say that Urlacher wasn't good. I just think those guys were better than he is. So, who was a good all-around person? Seau? Yeah, he was. He was. So, yeah, I just like Seau. I think he's underrated. I think he's really underrated. So, I think he's one of the best middle linebackers, one of the best linebackers, period. He goes underrated. But there's a lot of middle linebackers. You could have said Patrick Willis. That's another guy we could have put in there. I had Lambert. I got Jack Lambert at 4. Troy was super good, but Troy was a safety. If you're talking about Troy Polamalu, he was a safety. So, current best inside linebacker, Nick Bolton's got to be. And no, Nick Bolton is not the best current inside linebacker. No, he is not. He's not in the same class as Roquan Smith and Fred Warner. He is not in their class. Not even, no. Fred Warner and Roquan Smith, and then everybody else. Currently. And I'm not saying Bolton's not good, because he is, but let's be honest. He's not one of the top inside or middle linebackers that is playing football right now. He's not in I shouldn't say that. Let me backtrack. He could be in the top 10, but the top 2, the separation between 2 and 3 is great. It's difference between 2 and 3. The difference there is greater than 3 and 7. So, but that's current linebackers. But overall, to me, the best middle linebackers to ever play ever. Number 1, Ray Lewis. Number 2, Dick Butkus. Number 3, Mike Singletary. Number 4, Jack Lambert. And number 5, Junior Seau. And Seau, to me, is one of the more underrated defensive players that we got. And again, I know it's because of how he played or where he played, not how he played, but where he played. I get that. Wakan says Ray Nitschke is top 5, and he has Seau at 6. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about Nitschke. It's not that Nitschke wasn't any good, but they didn't let everybody play when Nitschke was playing, if you know what I mean. And I always, and maybe that's wrong of me to knock somebody because it wasn't their fault per se. But when you don't let everybody in and you're the best at something, it's hard for me to give you that moniker. You know, it's like Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth, a lot of people say he was the best baseball player ever. But, I mean, he didn't play against all the best baseball players. And again, I'm not saying that it was his fault. I'm just saying, but he didn't play against all the best baseball players. So it's hard for me to go that route and say that he's the best when I don't know that he's the best. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So, could Butkus play today? I don't know if Butkus could play today the way the rules are. I say that, but my thing is he probably just would have adapted. He probably would have just adapted. And to the way that the rules are played. So the one thing about Butkus could run. I mean, Butkus could cover guys. So, yeah, I think he could play today. First of all, he was big. He was mean. You know, now defenses were a lot more simple back in those days. You know, they didn't have the complex passing game and they didn't have the complex running schemes. So things were a lot more simple back in those days. But that doesn't mean he wasn't smart and didn't know the game, though. That's all I'm saying. That doesn't mean he wasn't smart. Didn't mean he didn't know the game. It just means that things were they were just different. Excuse me. They were just different. So, but I definitely like Butkus. I like this list. Like I said, there's guys like Luke Kuechly, I think, was outstanding. Too bad his career got cut short. Patrick Willis. Too bad he cut his own career short because he's like, I've been beat up. Enough is enough. I respect guys that do that. I respect guys that do that. So that's my whole thing. I respect a lot of those guys that are out there that say, you know what? Enough is enough. Enough is enough. I respect it. And Patrick Willis was super good too. AJ Hawk. I mean, AJ Hawk was good, but he's not in this category. AJ Hawk was a good linebacker, but he's not in this category. We can't say AJ Hawk and Patrick Willis in the same conversation as far as how good they were. It's not fair to AJ Hawk. You know, it's not fair to Patrick Willis either, because Patrick Willis was that good. Same thing with Luke Kuechly. Yeah. Can't do that. Can't do that. Let me ask you guys this question. Here's somebody else that goes really underrated. Zach Thomas. Zach Thomas. Played all those years in Miami. Was Zach Thomas that guy? I mean, he was a tackling machine, man. He was a tackling machine. Zach Thomas was. Got underrated, really underrated. Yeah, But yeah, he was a tackling fool. Tackling fool. I like Zach Thomas. Undersized, hard-nosed, ran to the football. Yeah, people look over him because of his size. Zach was very underrated. Very underrated. I like Zach Thomas. So, now Pat Cockrell, you're going too far, but I get why. Because you're a diehard Red Raider. He said Zach Thomas is my GOAT. But you know me, Big B. I'm biased towards my Red Raiders. I get it, my man. I get it. But the thing about it is, Zach Thomas he's so much underrated that people act like, or some people act like he wasn't any good. And I'm like, hold on. He was very good. Very good. So to me, that's crazy. That's crazy. So, no, not Cushing was a steroid hit. So I don't count anything that Cushing does. Derek Johnson, he was good. He was underrated too. Thing about Derek Johnson, he came into the league and had to learn not to run around blocks. And he learned it and then was good. So Bobby Wagner, outstanding. He's also another person in that Luke Kuechly, Patrick Willis mold. He's in that conversation. He is in that conversation. So the top offensive tackles of all time. Top offensive tackles of all time. I think my list is pretty precise. And here's a list. Usually I don't fight people on lists. This is one I'm going to fight you on. If you don't agree. We're going to argue. We're going to argue on this one. So let's start with number 5. Orlando Pace. Orlando Pace. Somebody said the Pouncey brothers. Man, you got to watch more football. But number 5, I got Orlando Pace. Okay? I love it. Orlando Pace played for the Rams for many years. Outstanding. Anchored that offensive line. Orlando Pace at number 5. Number 4, Willie Roaf was a dominant, just dominant run-blocking left tackle, but you couldn't get around him as a defensive end, as a rush in on the left tackle. You could not get around him. He posted you up. One of the stronger offensive tackles that were out there. One of the stronger offensive, because if he got his hands on you, call it curtains. Call it curtains. Willie Roaf. Number 3, Walter Jones. In my opinion, Walter Jones might have been the most athletic, and when you combine athletic and power, he may have been the most athletic and powerful left tackles that was out there. Look at this. My man Darren Howard, 10 years in the NFL, he says, I hated all of them. And it may have been because they threw him around like a rag doll. I don't know. I would be watching my guy. I'm like, come on, Darren. Come on, bro. Come on, man. And that's all I could get out. That's all I could get out. Come on, bro. Just kind of like you're rooting on the guy that you know is getting whipped. I'm like, come on, man. Come on, Darren. I felt bad for him. I felt bad. It was ugly. But Darren was good. Those guys were just that much better than everybody. It's crazy. It was crazy. Number 2, Anthony Munoz. And a lot of people think Anthony Munoz is number 1. I don't know. I like Munoz. He was one that actually we used to watch film on when I was in college. He would have, and not just, it was educational films, not just his game tape. It was education, hand placement, feet placement, drops, pass set, all that stuff. First 2 choppy steps. You got to get the first 2 steps. That was big for him. The first 2 steps meant everything. If you don't get those right, you lose. And he didn't lose often, if ever. And then the last one, and I say the last one, but number 1, the best offensive tackle, in my opinion, is Jonathan Ogden. I mean, Jonathan Ogden had hands the size of gorillas. Not only that, he was 6'8", long arms. You just couldn't get to his body. You couldn't get to his body. And he just held you off. He just held you off. You could not get her. I mean, I talk about people you couldn't get around. You couldn't get around Jonathan Ogden. You try to run wide, and he'll just string you out. You try to dip inside, that powerful inside, you're not getting inside. And I think that was the thing, is that he could force you wide because he was so tall and so long. Whew. I don't know. Where do I have Boselli? Tony Boselli, here's the thing. Boselli was really good, but he got hurt and didn't play long enough. You know, these tackles all played 9, 10 decade, a minimum. Boselli didn't do that. He got hurt. Joe Thomas is another one that I considered putting in there because Joe Thomas was really good. But those are my 5. Ogden 1, Munoz 2, Walter Jones 3, Willie Rowe 4, and Orlando Pace number 5. Like I said, I like Joe Thomas. And Joe Thomas and Orlando Pace, I went back and forth on. So, because they were really, really good. Really good. So, I appreciate it, Zach. Anybody got any issues with the list? I mean, Joe Thomas and Orlando Pace, you could put 1A and 1B. Joe Thomas was that good. I know he played for the Browns, and maybe a lot of people don't think, hey, Joe Thomas was outstanding. You never heard of anybody just dominant. Oh, man, they're getting rush pressure on the left side. Not in Cleveland, you didn't. So, my man said, Dan Moore, stop it. Don't piss me off this early in the morning, man. We're having a good day. Ogden, yeah. Where's the power ranking? We'll get to that. Pace, number 2. And here we got Braden in here talking about Jawaan Taylor. Yeah, Larry Allen was a guard. I mean, he played tackle a little, but he was mostly a guard. The top 5 NFL defensive tackles of all time. So, Warren Sapp, somebody says Warren Sapp top 5. No, absolutely not. And again, that doesn't mean Warren Sapp's not great. I'm not saying he's not great, but top 5? No. So here we go. Going from 5 to 1. Number 5, undersized defensive tackle. Didn't get drafted. Thought he was too little. And he was, technically at the time, 244 pounds his senior year. Coming out of, I think it was Texas A&M Kingsville. Either way, John Randle. Absolute menace. 6-time first-team All-Pro. 7-time Pro Bowler. Had 137 sacks. Did y'all realize that? That John Randle ended his career with 137 sacks. Unblockable. Literally unblockable. On the edge. 3 technique, just running by people. Power, speed, nastiness. Give me John Randle. Because you at that size, you have to be a technician. You're not just bull rushing people at 280 pounds. That's just not happening. You're not doing that consistently. So you got to be a technician. Hand placement, foot placement, setting guys up, all that stuff, film study. Give me John Randle at number 5. Now, here is where it starts to get a little tricky, but at number 4, Alan Page. Let me look at something here. Let me go through my notes here. Boom, 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 boom. And there it is. Alan Page. That's what I thought. I thought that's what I wrote down there. Number 5, Alan Page. First of all, Alan Page, underrated. Underrated defensive tackle. He played back in the 70s, but absolutely underrated. 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. And again, now this is unofficial, 148 sacks. Now, he played in an era where they didn't record him, but 148 from the defensive tackle position. Unbelievable. All-decade team. Played on those 4 teams of Minnesota that went to the Super Bowl. Didn't win any. Went on to become a lawyer and a judge. Alan Page. Underrated. Underrated. And again, this was back. I know people are thinking, well, those guys weren't as big. But for that time, those guys were monsters. Just absolute monsters. So, but yeah, Alan Page, undersized, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Absolutely incredible from the defensive tackle position. Not to mention, Alan Page, 8-time Pro Bowler, or 9-time Pro Bowler, 8-time first team All-Pro. So there's that. Pretty good. Pretty good. Next on the list, number 3, Mr. Cowboy, Bob Lilly. Now, look, I don't necessarily like, you all know how I am about the Cowboys. I'm the vice president of the Cowboys Hater Committee. But a man was 11-time Pro Bowler, 7-time first team All-Pro. I mean, what do you want me to say? Well, I mean, seriously, what do you want me to say? 11 times in the Pro Bowl, 7 times first team All-Pro. He was on the all-decade team in the 60s and the 70s. So 2 decades, he was one of the best defensive tackles that played in the National Football League. Mr. Cowboy Bob Lilly comes in at number 3. Again, big for his time, athletic, strong at the point of attack, ton of push, initial punch, Lord have mercy, and was a technician with his hands. You just couldn't keep your hands on him because he was knocking you off. Bob Lilly, Mr. Cowboy, comes in at number 3. So, all right. Number 2. Now, this one, I wanted to put him at number 1. He's number 1 in my heart. Mean Joe Greene. First of all, that's the best nickname in sports history. Mean Joe. Mean Joe Greene. And he played with an attitude, just a bad attitude. Was nasty. Fun fact about Mean Joe Greene, by the way, played over half his career with nerve damage in one of his arms. Was still that dominant with extreme nerve damage in his right, I think it was his right arm. Fun fact, didn't know that about him. He was the first player in NFL history to win the Defensive Player of the Year award twice. Was the anchor of the Steel Curtain defense that, in my estimation, the best defenses of all time. I know people will throw out, the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears. Nah. Nobody wants to hear that. You won 1 title. Get out of here. Steelers won 4 titles in 6 years. 9 Pro Bowlers. Stop it. Steelers defense. And Mean Joe was the anchor. He was the anchor. He was that guy. Couldn't move him. Invented the shade as far as a nose tackle. Unblockable. Would slide through between the center and the guard because he would tilt. He would tilt a little bit, and he was too quick. You couldn't block him. Could not block him. Had to shorten your splits down to be able to get in front of him. Well, when you did that, that caused problems on the end. Mean Joe was just that guy. Number 2, Mean Joe Greene. And number 1, you can call it recency bias if you want to. But you can't. You can't, I mean, 10 years in the league, he made the Pro Bowl all 10 years. 8 times first team All Pro, 111 sacks, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Universally known as one of the most unblockable and the most dominating defensive players in the history of the National Football League is Aaron Donald. I don't care if Aaron Donald retired today. They need to put him in the Hall of Fame now. The whole waiting 5 years is stupid anyway, in my opinion. I know they always say, well, guys might come back and play. Who cares? Who cares? For instance, if Aaron Donald, if you put him in the Hall of Fame this year and he came back next year and said, you know what, I want to continue to play, and he plays awful, does that mean he's still not a first ballot Hall of Famer? Does that take away from what he did the first 10 years of his career? Hell no, it doesn't. So why do we have to wait? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're a Hall of Famer when you end your career, how are you not a Hall of Famer 5 years after? I mean, why do you have to wait? Either you are or you're not. You can't do anything in between that time period that's going to make you a Hall of Famer. So I just think the reasoning behind that, why they make people wait, it's almost like, well, they're in the Hall of Fame, but they can't be playing. Why? I mean, we didn't know Jerry Rice wasn't the greatest receiver to ever play while he was still playing. Of course we did. So why do we have to wait? Either way, Aaron Donald is the guy. Number one defensive tackle of all time. It's not recency bias. I know people will say that. Prisoner of the moment, which I'm a huge proponent of. But Aaron Donald was just that good. You couldn't block him. And he wrecked shop up until the very last snap that he was on an NFL field. If you didn't account for him, you had problems. You had problems up till the very last snap. If you didn't account for Aaron Donald, you had problems. Just that simple. It's just that simple. And you better account for him with a minimum of 2 guys. Because if you don't, he's going to wreck your backfield. He's going to wreck your play. I mean, ask Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. They thought they could get by without blocking them, or only blocking them with one guy. The last play of the Super Bowl, Jamar Chase is wide open, but guess what? Aaron Donald was hitting your quarterback because they thought, we'll slide the protection. We'll let our guy block one-on-one. Hopefully he can get in the way. Well, guess what? He couldn't get in the way. Stupidity at its finest. And that's what happens. That's how Aaron Donald, if you didn't block him, he wrecked your play with 2 guys, period. And sometimes when you did block him with 2 guys, he wrecked your play. Strong, athletic, just was mean, but not dirty, but super mean, basically. And he wasn't 340 pounds. I mean, he wasn't even 300 pounds. That's what Aaron Donald is doing. Wasn't even 300 pounds. Just dominating your offensive guards. Whoever he was around, he's dominating them. That's how good he was. Could rush up and down. And I'm sorry, Dynamite Dave. Sapp is not 2 or 3. Warren Sapp is not 2 or 3. You got to stop that. Got to stop that. We love Warren Sapp. We think he's great, but he's not in the top 5 defensive tackles of all time. He's just not. He's just not. So we love him, but he ain't top 5. So there's the top 5. Going from 5 to 1. John Randall, Alan Page, Bob Lilly, Mean Joe Green, Aaron Donald. It's been a fun series, man. It's been a fun. We only got one position that we're going to cover left. We're going to do that next week. That's quarterback. That'll be fun. That's going to be fun because I'm going to ruffle feathers. Y'all know me. And it's going to be fun. So, what else do we got, people? What do we got today on this lovely Friday? So, what do we have? Wakan says, not top 5, but Randy White was very scary. Yeah, he was. And I debated putting him in the top 5 too. I think he's 6, maybe 7 in my opinion. Randy White was very – here's the thing about Randy White. Hell, he started his career as a middle linebacker in the pros. As a backup. Imagine being that guy that made that decision. Oh, we're going to have Randy White. We're going to have him be a backup middle linebacker. He played defensive end coming out of college, but we're going to have him as a backup linebacker. I hope that guy doesn't play or isn't anywhere close to football after that. Lord have mercy. Colorado prediction, over under 5 wins. Man, if Colorado doesn't get 5 wins, they should fire Coach Prime. Yeah, you heard me say that. If Colorado does not get 5 wins, Deion Sanders needs to be fired. I don't care how much money he's bringing to the program. It isn't working what he's doing if you can only win 5 games. Period. End of story. He's got to win more than 5 games. They got to win. In my opinion, 7 is the threshold. 7 is the threshold. So I think you got to do that. But 5, that's not a lot of pressure. Winning 5 games is a lot of pressure? No, it ain't. Go win. You're supposed to be better. People are turning rosters around left and right and winning football games these days. You don't have to continue to stink. You just don't. You just don't. My man Sideshow says under 5 games. Stop it. Stop it right now. Under 5 games. I hope not, man. I hope not. Leroy Glover, what he did at 285 was weird and awesome to watch. Yeah, Leroy Glover was really good. He's another guy. Undersized, 3 technique, borderline Hall of Famer. Personally, I think he belongs in there. Was outstanding while he was playing. A lot of people may not even know him. I think that's kind of the thing.
In an ideal world, how much of your...
But yeah, just kind of goes unnoticed a lot. Goes unnoticed.
In an ideal world,
TikTok is on one today, and we're trying our best, but it is what it is. It is what it is. They're not going to keep messing with you. It is what it is. But yeah, Coach Prime, he got to win a lot. Leroy Glover belongs in the Hall of Fame. What do we got here from my man Wakan? Too bad we never got to see how great Jerome Brown could have been. Exactly. Is that the best defensive line ever? Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons. Is that the best defensive line that we've seen? I'm kind of thinking that it is. I mean, if it's not, it's definitely top 5. Probably top 3. Top 5 rush ends of all time. And I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of different opinions. So, number 1, first off, let's just start here. As I said, I've humbled myself. If anybody is arguing that Lawrence Taylor is not the best rush in outside linebacker, yada, 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 we're including him as an outside linebacker. We're just talking about rush ends. If you rush off the end, regardless of position, Lawrence Taylor is number 1. Lawrence Taylor is number 1. So let's start there. Dwight Freeney is not in the top 5. No. Reggie White would be number 2. Reggie White is definitely number 2. Okay? Now, this is where some people, and here's somebody, Marcos, we can't even take you seriously, my guy, saying no way Lawrence Taylor is number 1. Lawrence Taylor is the best football player of all time, but somehow he wasn't a good rush-in. It's okay. We're not even going to take you serious. So number 3, and this is where some people are going to disagree. I have Derek Thomas ahead of Bruce Smith, and Bruce Smith is number 4. I got Derek Thomas. So, Derek Thomas at number 3. So, and I got Bruce Smith at number 4. Now, number 5 is where it really gets dicey. I saw somebody put in here on TikTok said Deacon Jones. And somebody said Micah Parsons is better than Lawrence Taylor. I will never take you serious on anything ever, ever, ever. So, but number 5 is where it can get dicey. Somebody brought up, nobody brought up DeMarcus Ware. You could put on DeMarcus Ware. Somebody brought up Deacon Jones. Somebody brought up who? Yes. Oh, I already said Bruce Smith. Dwight Freeney. Michael Strahan. I said J.J. Watt. I went with J.J. Watt. Now, Watt played a weird position because they played a 3-4 or a 4-3 defense, or take that back, a 3-4 defense, and he kind of rushed at that weird 4-eye position. So was he a defensive end or was he more of a defensive tackle? I don't know. So, but I liked him. Now, if anybody said, hey, Brian, come on, Michael Strahan, I'm not going to argue with you. Deacon Jones, I'm not going to argue with you. Julius Peppers, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with you about any of those. But I will argue with you if you say that Lawrence Taylor's not number 1. I will argue with you, and I will come out of my zone and get back into my comfort zone and call you an idiot. Number 2, if you say that Reggie White wasn't at least number 2, I'm going to argue with you. Now, number 3, I mean, like I said, Number 3, Derek Thomas. I don't think people understand how good Derek Thomas was. I just don't think people know. He died too soon. He never won a Super Bowl, but Derek Thomas was the absolute truth. So, Derek Thomas was the absolute truth. So, and I like Dwight Freeney. I think he's great. So, but no, we're not talking about off-the-field contributions. Hell, if we're talking about off-the-field contributions, my man David Gonzalez says, then Lawrence Taylor can't even be on the list. He can't even be on the list if we're talking about off-the-field stuff. Lord have mercy. But then again, I'm not talking about off-the-field stuff because if y'all were here 2 weeks ago, OJ was in the top 5 running backs. OJ, TikTok, that OJ. So just so we know, we're not talking about anything off the field because if we do that, we got to start eliminating people. And I like the juice. We got to have the juice. We can't. Did he kill somebody? Did he not? I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't answer that question. Thing about Lawrence Taylor, you know what he did. Lord have mercy. I mean, whew. But either way, Lawrence Taylor, he's the best. Julius Peppers, like I said, if somebody puts Julius Peppers at number 5, I'm never going to argue with you. Or has him in your top 5, I'm not going to argue. But LT number 1, Reggie White number 2, Derek Thomas number 3, Bruce Smith number 4, and I have J.J. Watt at number 5. So, Von Miller, that's another one. And yes, he is the closest thing to Derek Thomas with the bend, the speed, and the size. Because Derek Thomas wasn't a big dude. People think Derek Thomas, 260 pounds. If Derek Thomas was 230, he wasn't 231. Derek Thomas was not a big guy, and neither is Von Miller. So what happened to Mike Singletary? He played middle linebacker. He doesn't qualify for this one, my man. But we'll get to that probably next week. You think Miles or TJ could be in the combo? They're still playing, so no, but they can get there. But these are the all-time best. Like when you think of the all-time best pass rushers, TJ Watt and Myles Garrett don't come to mind just yet. I'm not saying they can't get there, but you don't think about them just yet. Not yet. They can get there, though. So They can get there. Somebody said Warren Sapp. Come on, Dennis. Come on, man. I'm trying. Look, people, I'm trying. I'm trying to evolve. And when people say Warren Sapp, as far as being a rush end, what am I supposed to say to that? Goon Squad, help me. Help me help you. When we're talking about the best rush ends of all time, and somebody brings up Warren Sapp, you guys tell me what you would like for me to say to that person. Because I'm trying to be a better man. I'm trying to be a better man. But I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Should I just say, hey, man, I'm sorry, Warren Sapp was a defensive tackle. I apologize. I don't think you guys want me to say that. I don't think y'all want me to say that at all. I think somebody said, hey, that's an unintelligent answer. Warren Sapp played the defensive tackle position. He doesn't qualify for this. Is that better? I don't even think you guys want me to do. First of all, yeah. I don't even think you guys want me to say it that way either. But I'm trying to be a better man. But y'all got to help me. Help me help you, man. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. And see, we got our man Jacob over here on YouTube being funny. I love it. Be fair, Dennis. He also had Warren Sapp and B.J. Raji as the best cornerbacks, too. See? Y'all aren't helping me. I'm trying to be better. You guys are not helping me. I'm trying. Oh. All-time best lists are always flawed because you can't compare different generations. Training gets better. Nutrition gets better. Sports medicine gets better. Got to do best of the decade. Yeah. What player in any decade ever is better than Lawrence Taylor? I mean, you can put on the film and you can watch. So, what player in any era? Because right now, if you drop Lawrence Taylor in this era today, he is dominating. He is literally dominating. You drop Reggie White in this era today, he's still throwing tackles around and dominating. So, come on, man. You can compare. You can compare. It depends. But you can absolutely compare. Reggie would absolutely dominate. And Reggie would still be throwing around tackles. Lawrence Taylor would be running around through tackles and killing your quarterback. LT. Oh, here's another one. My man Brandon. He said Brian Urlacher. You guys tell me what I should say, people. You guys tell me what I should say. I don't want to be that guy. I'm trying to be a better man. I'm trying. But Brian Urlacher, I'll do it. Hey, my man Brandon. Brian Urlacher was a middle linebacker. He didn't play rush in. So we're talking about the best rush ins or best pass rushers on the outside of all time. That's what we're talking about. I apologize, Brandon. See? Growth. You know? Nah, don't worry about it, Brandon. We're just messing around with you. See, basically what this comes down to, I'm an asshole. Okay? That's what this comes down to. I'm an asshole. When somebody says something silly, I respond like I'm an asshole. But I was told that I'm being too much of an asshole, so I need to change. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to grow. You don't have to be sorry, though. I tell you what, Joe Montana was the best edge rusher ever. See, now y'all just pissing me off. See, now y'all are just being funny. Now you guys are being ridiculous. That's why you got to love people on TikTok. They will take, if you give them an inch, they will take 10 miles and run with it. I love it. YouTube, y'all do the same thing. I give, especially this David Gonzalez character. First of all, he's been to my house, people. So I know how crazy this dude is. You give this guy an inch, he'll run the whole length of the country. Just give him a little inch. Unbelievable, this guy. I love him. Don't get me wrong. I love him. But he's crazy. He's crazy. Khalil Mack. I don't know. And he's not top 5 or top 10, but Khalil Mack is very good. And that's the thing. You don't have to be, if you're not in the top 5 or a top 10 of something, that doesn't mean you're not any good. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean you're not any good. Khalil Mack's not top 15 pass rushers of all time. No, he's not. But again, he's great. Jared Allen, he's in the top 10 for me. Von Miller is definitely in the top 10. Definitely. Derek Thomas says Rodney White changed my love for edge rushers. Dude was different. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. That's why we had Derek Thomas at number 3. Well, I'll go through the list again. At number 5, we said J.J. Watt. At number 4, we had Bruce Smith. How come there's not a lot of people that in here that are talking about Bruce Smith? Well, here's somebody who just said Bruce Smith 5, but nobody really brought up Bruce Smith. So, but I got J.J. Watt at 5, Bruce Smith at 4, Derek Thomas at 3, Reggie White at 2, Lawrence Taylor at 1. So, that would be the list that I have. So, yeah, Bruce Smith played for Buffalo. And I think he played for Washington at the end. But he was just trying to get the sack record at the end. He wasn't really that effective. So, 6 and 7 would be Ware and Strahan. I think I got Strahan at 6. Oh, I may have Strahan at 6, Peppers at 7, Von Miller at 7, Peppers at 8. Richard Dent? Yeah, I don't know. I think I would have Charles Haley. Somebody put it, yeah, Ricky. I think I'd have Charles Haley before Richard Dent. So, and then I'm not going to disrespect. Look, nobody saw him play. There's not that much footage that you can find of Deacon Jones. So, I'm just not as sure how explosive Deacon Jones could be. And Too Tall Jones wasn't that good. Not to be in this and considered in this. And Too Tall Jones played defensive tackle. So, see? April 8th said, educate, don't humiliate. That's what you guys want from me, isn't it? TikTok and YouTube? If somebody says something that's out of bounds, y'all would rather me educate versus humiliate. I can get down with that. It's not going to be as much fun. Yeah, see, somebody said, nah, humiliation is the best form of education. See, I can't with you people. Here I am trying to be a better man, show some growth. I'm not going to humiliate anybody. But no, my man Perk said no. Humiliation is the best form of education. My goodness. My man Mike Yates said, why not both? Gosh. Oh, well. What am I going to do with you people? Oh, Mike Yates said Khalil Mack is arguably not even top 5 of his era. I could agree with that. I would agree with that. I like Khalil Mack. I think he's a great player. But, yeah, to put him on a list, that would be tough. That would be tough. For instance, he had 16 and a half sacks this year. Where would you rank him this year? I mean, I know we think TJ Watt's better. We think Myles Garrett is better. We think Micah Parsons is better. And I don't think there's any argument for that. So, April H said, put it on a shirt. What should we put on a shirt, though? Educate, don't humiliate? Or humiliation is the best form of education? That would be the question. Oh, man. Jess says, Big B, be yourself. You know what, Jess? I am 1,000% going to be that, man. Life is way too short not to be myself. Way too short. Make them both and see which one works. Speaking of that, we are coming out with shirts. And it'll be sooner than what you guys think. So, Deacon Jones didn't make my top 5, man, but we love Deacon Jones. So, the top 5 NFL cornerbacks of all time. Top 5 NFL quarterbacks of all time. This is my list. Don't be disrespectful. I won't be disrespectful to you. But this is who I got. Let's get the debate going. We'll start from 5 and we'll go to 1. 5 and we'll go to 1. Number 5. It's funny. Somebody said Champ and 4 others. Well, you're right. Because the 5th best corner of all time is Champ Bailey. Champ Bailey could cover, had decent size. I mean, he wasn't some behemoth out there, but he wasn't a little dude. He was physical as a corner because you know what? You know what I love my corners to do? That's tackle. That is tackle. I love for my corners to tackle. So Champ Bailey is number 5. I'm reading a list here over on TikTok. They said Revis, Sherman, Lott, Prime, Champ. I mean, Ronnie Lott was a really good corner. He was an all-pro corner before he was a safety. A lot of people don't know that. But Richard Sherman, stop it. Stop it. And that's not because Richard Sherman is a bad football player. I thought he was great. But top 5 corner ever? Come on, man. We got to be serious. Number 4, a lot of people, young people on TikTok are not even going to know who this guy is. But do your research. Mel Blount, number 4. Mel Blount, they literally changed the game because of Mel Blount. He was big. He was 6'2". He was physical. Mel Blount would be a damn near a linebacker today. He was that big. He was out there playing corner, shutting people down. They literally changed the rules for him. Mel Blount was so physical at the line of scrimmage. And they changed the rules that you can't hit guys after 5 yards down the field. They literally called it the Mel Blount rule. And then after they changed the rules, people thought, oh, he won't be any good anymore. Yeah, he went to 2 more Pro Bowls and got 2 more All-Pro teams. So it wasn't just him beating you up. The man could cover. He was an absolute beast. And if you're on YouTube, you can see the picture that we got put up. I mean, you can see it. The guy was, like I said, if Mel Blount was playing today, he'd be a linebacker. He'd be a Sam linebacker. He was that big out there playing corner. I love some of these lists that people are putting up there, and we'll get to them as soon as I get through mine. Number 3, Darrelle Revis. Look, of all the corners that are out there, nobody's had a 2009 season like Darrelle Revis had. The people that he shut down. Yes, shut down the top receivers in the league. He shut them down. T.O., Randy Moss, Hopkins. I mean, the list goes on and on. Shut them down. And look, I know a lot of people say, well, it was just 1 year. And it was. But after that, people just didn't throw his way. But as far as a top corner, all time, Darrelle Revis, number 3, you have to have him in there. You do. Number 2, a lot of people, again, a lot of young people don't realize that this guy was the best corner in the league, one of the best corners of all time. Number 2 on the list, Rod Woodson. Now, there's going to be some people that are going, hey, Rod Woodson was a safety. No, that was his second career. That was his second Hall of Fame career. His first one, he was a top corner. Rod Woodson. People forget that. First of all, Rod Woodson, he was big. He was fast. He was athletic. The guy was that guy. He was that guy. Now, there's a guy that's on YouTube, Sideshow 33. Again, I'm not going to say his name. I know him. I'm not going to say his name. But he was a pretty good corner himself back in the day. He was a pretty good corner himself back in the day. So he knows a little bit, you know. But that's Rod Woodson was that dude. And again, a lot of people, they don't know. They don't get it. They don't understand. But he was that guy. He was that guy. So my man Sideshow said people out there throwing Sherman on there. And Sherman said that Sherman wasn't even better than Dale Carter. And people forget about how good Dale Carter is. That gets lost in translation because Dale Carter was crazy off the field. But when Dale Carter kept it together off the field, when he was on the field, absolute dog. Absolute dog. Him and James Hasty for the Chiefs, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. That was back in the 90s. I know a lot of you don't know. The Chiefs, they had a dog defense. Lord have mercy. Neil Smith, Derek Thomas, Dale Carter, James Hasty. Oh, my God. Woo. Woo. You're right. Dale Carter was a pick six or a penalty because he was going to gamble. So, Rod Woodson from Indiana. He was from Indiana, from Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne. But yeah, Rod Woodson is definitely number 2 on this list. And then look, number 1, that's easy, is Deion. And here's what a lot of people, Deion gets a bad rap for not tackling. But that happened later on in his career. Early in Deion's career, Deion would hit you. He would tackle you. He was physical. Now, as he got a little older, he figured out, hey, man, I'm the best corner out here. I'm just not going to let these guys catch the ball. But I'm not going to, these running backs coming up trying to punish me when they get to the outside. Yeah, I'm going to make a business decision. But Deion, early in his career, he tackled you. He did. He was physical. But where Deion was also physical was at the line of scrimmage. And a lot of people, that goes unnoticed. Deion didn't let you win at the line of scrimmage. But the problem, another problem, I should say, is if you did win, he wasn't going to, and you got by him, he was going to catch up. Balls weren't just, okay, well, the ball was underthrown. No. Ball could be right on the money. He's just outrunning your receiver to the football. That was what he did. That's what he did. You know, you see a lot of corners, they get beat, and then they'll get a pick on an underthrown ball or a badly thrown ball, which, hey, that's part of the game. But when the ball's thrown on time and perfect, Deion just caught up. His recovery speed was impeccable. That's what made him the best. He was extremely physical at the line of scrimmage to get you on a jam, and a lot of times you didn't get off of it. But if you did, then what? You better hit him on a quick slant, because if you're going anything deeper than 10, 12 yards, he's catching up to your receiver. And that's why Deion was so good. Somebody put honorable mention, Charles Woodson. Yeah. Charles Woodson was so good that I actually think he was a better safety than he was a corner. And I think he's an outstanding corner. But I just think he was a better safety than corner. Yeah. And it's not that he wasn't a great corner, because he was. He was. Physical. He was physical. So, and you could have put Charles Woodson, but like I said, I think Woodson was a better safety because he didn't turn to being a safety like, oh, well, he got old and he had to move to safety. No, they moved him to safety because I think he was a better safety. You know, same thing with Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott, and I know a lot of people don't know, Ronnie Lott was an all-pro corner when he first came into the National Football League. All-pro corner. All-pro. Not, hey, he made a Pro Bowl. You know how Pro Bowls go. They just vote you in and put people in sometimes. No. He was an all-pro corner. And then they moved him to safety because, oh, this guy can tackle in the box. Oh, he can blow somebody's head off coming across the middle. Yeah, let's put this guy at free safety. But we're going to start him out at strong safety. What did he do at strong safety? All pro. Then you move him to free safety, the greatest free safety to ever play. To me, he's the best safety ever. I know a lot of people say Ed Reed. No, Ed Reed wasn't a tackler like Ronnie Lott. Ed Reed was a ball hawk, but he wasn't a tackler like Ronnie Lott. And that, again, that's no shade thrown at Ed Reed. He just wasn't a tackler like that. He wasn't a tackler like that. You didn't fear going across the middle because Ed Reed was there. Now, you might fear because your quarterback is going to get the ball. He's going to throw a bad ball and he's going to pick it off. But as a receiver, yeah, I'll go in there on Ed Reed. You thought twice about going in there against Ronnie Lott because you knew what was coming. You knew what was coming. So, I like it. Aeneas Williams, yes, sir. A lot of good corners in the National Football League. A lot of good corners. But yeah, Aeneas Williams, absolutely. Darrell Green. Now, look, I'm biased. I know a lot of people throw Darrell Green out there. And I always say this. As far as speed, Darrell Green was the fastest corner. But if you ever pay attention to the highlights, isn't Darrell Green always chasing a guy down, tackling him? You know, like you don't just, oh man, Darrell Green just locked this guy up. No, he didn't do that. He was fast, but he wasn't just locking guys down. It's always catching somebody, which that's fine. But that's why I'm like, no, I don't have Darrell Green as far as the top corner ever. No, he didn't just lock guys down. And again, I'm not saying he was a bad corner. I'm just saying these other guys locked you up. They locked you up. And where Darrell Green excelled, he excelled because of his speed. So, always chasing. That's right. Always chasing. Never blanking at anybody. Never shutting anybody down. Always trying to catch somebody from behind, man. That was Darrell Green. But I like the list, man. I like this list. Again, I'll go over for anybody that just got in here. Top 5 corners in the NFL. Number 5, Champ Bailey. Number 4, Mel Blount. Number 3, Darrelle Revis. Number 2, Rod Woodson. And number 1, Deion Sanders. I like the list. Anybody's got some other lists, throw them out there. Let's see them. Throw them out there. So, and here's jealousy talking over here on TikTok or on YouTube. Darren Howard, not surprised, 40% of your list is Steelers. Is it my fault that the Steelers had 2 of the greatest corners of all time? Is that my fault? I mean, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I've said this before to people, and I'll say it again so you guys understand. All right? I didn't choose to be a Steelers fan. All right? I didn't wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm going to root for the Steelers. No. That's not what happened. God chose me to be a Steelers fan. And it can be whatever God you are. Look, I'm not the most religious guy out there. I believe in God. So if you do, great. If you don't, great. Whatever. But God chose Steeler fans, okay? It's a burden being a Steelers fan, all right? I'm going to throw that out there. It is a burden to be a Steelers fan. God chose us. It's a big responsibility, people. It's a big responsibility. So I don't know what you want us to do other than, hey, it's tough. What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? No, it's not like the same as a 49er fan. No, it's not. No, it's not. Stop it. The bottom line is the Steelers. God says, you're a Steelers fan. You're a Steelers fan. You're a Steelers fan. That's the burden we live with, people. That's the burden we live with. It's tough. It's tough. But, hey, somebody's got to do it. Top 5 wide receivers all time. Now, somebody jumped in. My man Tyreek Hill, he jumped in and said, who are you talking about, or who am I taking in their prime? Antonio Brown or Julio Jones? I would say I'm going to take Antonio Brown. I'm a Steelers fan. I'm biased, but I mean, tell me something that Antonio Brown didn't do that Julio Jones did do. That's all I'm going to say. What did Julio do that Antonio Brown couldn't do? Or not only couldn't do, that he didn't do. So, and yes, Antonio Brown turned crazy. No denying that. Became a locker room cancer and turned crazy. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But when he was on the field before all of that happened, he was that dude. For 6 years, he was that dude. So, but anyway, let's get to the list. Top 5 NFL wide receivers of all time. Here's the thing. I'm thinking everybody except lunatics will say that Jerry Rice is number 1. So let's just start there. Jerry Rice, number 1, and let's move past that. Now we got to get to the 2 through 5. And it gets tricky because a lot of people say Randy Moss. A lot of people say Terrell Owens. I'm going to say T.O. T.O. is more of a complete receiver than Randy Moss. Randy was outstanding. Randy was electric. At the deep ball, he redefined the deep ball because not only was it a deep ball, it was a deep, 50-50 ball that turned into basically an 85-15 ball when you threw it up and deep to Randy. He was coming down with it. Like, you didn't throw 50-50 balls to Randy. You threw it up there because 85% of the time, he's the guy that's coming down with it because he was that athletic. So, Parsons Brown said Jerry Rice literally just has the rings. I'm sorry, my guy. I apologize. We have to stop in the middle of this because we got crazy people over here on TikTok saying that Jerry Rice only has rings. Also, what Jerry Rice happens to have is every single receiving record other than the most yards in an NFL game. Other than that, he has every receiving record. But if we're just saying he just has rings, count every other receiving record along with that, and then we can move on. So let's just start there, and then we can move on. I apologize. I feel like when people, you all know me, I'm a fair guy, but when you say something stupid, I'm going to call you stupid. So number 2, I got T.O. Number 3, I got Randy Moss. Now, here is where it gets spicy, people. Here is where it gets spicy. I am a Larry Fitzgerald fan. I love Fitzgerald. But is he better than Megatron? That, to me, it's tough. I mean, here's the thing. The thing about Fitzgerald that makes it so tough, when a wide receiver has more tackles than drop passes in his NFL career, that's a special guy. You know what I'm saying? The guy has more tackles than drops. So, is he better than Megatron? I want to put Fitzgerald ahead of him, but I just can't do it. I can't do it. I got Fitzgerald at 5. First of all, Fitzgerald's not less than 5. So let's not stop the madness there and thinking I'm just putting him at 10 or something. No. But Megatron was just that guy. Calvin Johnson was that dude. He just was. And he could do a lot. He got hurt. Not going to say he didn't get hurt, but he could do a lot. Had great hands, fast, run, jump, catch, over the middle, deep, slant. He had the route tree. That's the one thing. If Randy Moss had the route tree, he would unquestionably be the best receiver ever. But he didn't do that. So that's the thing. That's my thing. Is Megatron over Fitzgerald. Megatron over Fitzgerald. I like Megatron. I like Fitzgerald. I want to put Fitzgerald at 4, but I won't. Megatron is it. So we got Jerry Rice, T.O., Moss, Megatron, Fitzgerald. Now, y'all start shooting me your list. Start shooting me your list. So I did see something on TikTok. My man, Redneck Patriot, where do you put Largent? Largent is in the top 10, probably around 9 to 10. But first of all, Redneck Patriot, do you know how many of these people on TikTok that don't even know who Steve Largent is? That would be the one thing. There are so many people that don't even know who Steve Largent even is. And Steve Largent was that dude. Not to mention, before Jerry Rice, guess who had all the receiving records, people? It was Steve Largent. So, Steve Largent, top 25, you're out of your mind, dude. Stop it. I love you. Lee and Daddy, come on. Steve Largent is much higher than top 25, man. And I think you know that. I think you know that. You just don't want to admit that he's up there. Why? I don't know. But Steve Largent, if you put Steve Largent at top 25, the number 25 of all-time receivers, there's no respect that goes to your list. That goes for everybody. Anybody that would put Steve Largent at 20 or less, your list is literally not respectable. Not at all. Not at all. Steve Largent is a top 10 wide receiver. Period. End of story. Period. End of story. So, Golf Hawk says Larry is second all-time in receiving as far as catches. And Calvin Johnson is 40th. I mean, he played longer, so he's going to have more. But if you watch film, Golf Hawk, who do you think was better? I mean, come on now. And I like this list from Golf Hawk. He said Jerry Rice, Fitzgerald, T.O., Randy Moss, Steve Smith. Okay. I mean, okay. If you're putting Steve Smith in your top 5, and you do say it's a personal bias, but Larry Fitzgerald is not the second best wide receiver ever. He's not. That's not being objective. That's not being objective. Yeah, Steve Smith is not top 5. And we all love Steve Smith, too. That's the thing, is that you don't have to say that somebody is not in the top 5 and oh, well, he's terrible. No, not at all. It just means he's not a top 5 receiver. That's all. It's okay. Hell, I think Steve Smith, you know how honest Steve Smith is. Steve Smith will even tell you he wasn't a top 5 receiver all time. And you know how feisty Steve Smith is. So my man Jacob Berger says Marvin Harrison over Fitz. No. And I love Marvin Harrison, but he wasn't better than Fitz. But Marvin Harrison's another guy that belongs in the top 10 as well. He's another guy that belongs in the top 10. And where do we put Antonio Brown? Let's talk about that for a second. Does the Antonio Brown, because for 6 years, who was better than Antonio Brown? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Who was better than Brown? I mean, is Antonio Brown in your top 10? Is he in your top 15? I think he has to be in the top 15. Top 10, maybe not. But I think he has to be in the top 15. So, my man Perk, you're right. AB is such a confusing case. Could have been a top 5, ends up top 25. I think you're right on that. Right on the money with that, Mr. Perk. Right on the money. Antonio Brown was on a trajectory to be a top 5 all-time receiver. And then he blew himself up. He literally blew himself up. Poured gasoline on himself and lit himself on fire and blew himself up. Never seen it. Well, I shouldn't say I've never seen anything like it. Actually, I don't know that I have. Not at the professional level. I mean, we've seen people blow their careers up that weren't any good. But have we ever seen, and y'all can remind me, have we ever seen in the NFL where a guy that was that good just literally incinerated his career with nonsense? Have we seen anybody do that? I don't think we have. Aaron Hernandez was never that good. So, good point, Scarface. You can't hide head injuries. Plaxico Burress was not even in the same realm as Antonio Brown. Nah. So, yeah, he's not even on the same realm. So, I got a lot of people saying CTE is a no bueno. Cam got hurt. Cam didn't blow up his career. Cam got hurt. Good list. Rice, Fitz, Moss, T.O., Julio, Hopkins. I take that back. That's not a good list. That's not a good list. So, you don't have Megatron on your list and you got Fitz up there. Come on. No. Santonio Holmes had a chance at one time. He had a chance, but again, he became a diva. He left Pittsburgh. His career was over. How many times are we going to see that? How many? I mean, here's the thing about the Steelers franchise. First of all, how good are the Pittsburgh Steelers at drafting wide receivers? How good are they? Aren't they the best ever of any franchise of getting receivers? And then they get these guys. They get their production. They get their production out of them. And then they start turning crazy, and the Steelers like, you can go. You can go. We'll get somebody else. You can go. How many times have we seen it? Man, I don't know what they do. I don't know what the DNA is. I don't know, but they just continuously will bring in guys. Then guys start acting crazy in Pittsburgh. Yeah, no, you can go. Goodbye. So, crazy. Michael Irvin and Chris Carter being in what? The top 10? I don't know. I think Chris Carter's got a better case than Michael Irvin. I don't have Michael Irvin in the top 10. I'm not sure I got Michael Irvin in the top 15. Matter of fact, I don't. Doesn't mean, here's the thing. Doesn't mean he wasn't great. Doesn't mean he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, because he does. But when you're just talking top 15, I think you can get to a lot of guys before you get to Michael Irvin, can't you? I shouldn't say a lot of guys, but I think you can get to 15 before you come to Michael Irvin. So, I think you can get to 15 before you get to Michael Irvin. So, hold on. Somebody's calling somebody. Oh, broke. Yeah. Some people, don't worry about it, man. People come on TikTok and they'll say anything. You know how 20-year-olds are that are living in their mother's basement. Let it go. Tyreek Hill will be in the top 15. Or top 10, he says. Tyreek Hill will finish up in the top 10. I don't know. I mean, he's got to keep going, but I think Tyreek Hill can probably get there. So, probably. So I think Tyreek Hill can probably get there. Sorry, I got to get somebody out of TikTok that was being disrespectful to other people in here. I apologize. So, Calvin Johnson is at number 4. So, let's go over the list again. Rice 1, T.O. 2, Moss 3, Megatron 4, Fitz 5. Is Marvin Harrison 6? Is Marvin Harrison 6? Is Chris Carter 8? Steve Largent 9. Who's number 7? I don't have Julio in that. I don't have Julio in the top 10. I don't. Antonio Brown, is he 8? Is he 7? It's interesting. A lot of people say Fitz over Megatron. I tried to get there, but I can't. Antonio Brown is not top 3. You got to stop saying that, man. You got to stop. Because you're already saying that Steve Largent's top 25. Now you're saying that Antonio Brown is top 3. I mean, I love you, brother. I do. But you got to stop. You got to stop with the nonsense. I'm with you. So, Antonio Brown is better than Ocho Cinco. I mean, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? Harrison was just flat out better than Fitz. No, he wasn't. I mean, and on no planet is Marvin Harrison better than Larry Fitzgerald. He's not better than him. And that, again, doesn't mean that Marvin Harrison wasn't phenomenal. But so was Larry Fitzgerald. Nobody's sleeping on A.J. Green, but we're talking about the best receivers of all time. A.J. Green doesn't qualify for that. That's the thing. So, who are some underrated wide receivers of all time? Now, that is a good conversation. That is a good conversation. Who are some of the most? Steve Smith comes to mind as being an underrated. Hines Ward, yeah. Just because Hines Ward was so complete, because, I mean, I think it's probably universally known Hines Ward was the best blocking wide receiver out there. Andre Johnson, because he played on bad teams. Yeah. I like it. Yeah, we talked about that, Austin, about Larry Fitzgerald had more career tackles than drops. Yeah, I just think it's nuts that people somehow just don't think, because Larry Fitzgerald wasn't the fastest guy in the world, somehow they don't think he was any good. And, well, he didn't have over 1,600 yards as in a season. Well, look who his quarterback was. I mean, look who his quarterbacks were. His best quarterback was Carson Palmer or Kurt Warner. I mean, he didn't play with Peyton Manning. If he did, and they threw the ball as much, do you think he would have had more yards? Yeah, he would have. Come on now. Chris Carter being underrated? Yeah, Chris Carter and Tim Brown for sure. For sure. Perk says Hall of Fame Kurt Warner only played there. He was only a Hall of Fame Kurt Warner for a season and a half in Arizona. Let's not kid ourselves. He didn't play like 5 years great in Arizona. That's not what happened. Mike Evans is definitely underrated as far as all-time receivers. Terry McLaurin is not even in the class of any of these people that we just got mentioned. Now, maybe right now, Terry McLaurin, but as far as all-time best receivers, come on, people. We're not talking about right now. So somebody over on YouTube said Brandon Cooks. We're talking about the most over or underrated receivers of all time, not currently. Not currently. Top 5 running backs of all time. Now, the first thing is people will say, well, come on, Big B. Can't you get to 10? Yeah, we can get to 10. But I feel like top 5 is legitimate. And not that 10's not legitimate, but when you start getting down to 10, then it starts becoming more, of your personal favorites. It's really, really subjective. That's what I think. It gets really, really subjective. So you can put top 5 up there, and we can have difference of opinion. But when you start getting down to 10, then it almost becomes, what your preference is versus legitimate. So my top 5, you back it up, starting with 5, O.J. Simpson. Now, I know all you young cats are going to say, OJ's a killer. Okay, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't need OJ problems in my life. But either way, go back and look at some film on O.J. Simpson. The man was an absolute dynamo when it comes to being a running back. O.J. Simpson, number 5 in my top 5. O.J. Number 4, Eric Dickerson. The combination of speed, size, vision. Eric Dickerson was that guy. Eric Dickerson was that guy. So that's just, I mean, if you haven't, again, for the young people out there, we used to run the football a lot. Eric Dickerson was a guy you could give the ball 30, 35 times a game. He's going to produce for you. He didn't wear down. He was going to produce for you. He played on a team where their quarterback was terrible, and he carried them to an NFC championship game. Now, they got destroyed by the Bears because, again, they couldn't throw the football. But Eric Dickerson is number 4 in my book. The man was absolutely incredible. Just incredible from the running back position. And again, number 5, O.J. Simpson. Number 4, Eric Dickerson. Number 3, Jim Brown. Jim Brown, look, I mean, I didn't see Jim Brown play either. I've had to rely on YouTube and NFL films to really take a look at Jim Brown. And I know a lot of people will say, well, Jim Brown was as big as the lineman back in those days. Okay. But if you give Jim Brown the training and nutrition of today, Jim Brown would probably be 0.2 of a second faster, and he'd be 260 pounds running over these cats. And so, I mean, think Jim Brown is Derrick Henry, only a little faster and more athletic. That if you think of Derrick Henry, think Jim Brown, except Jim Brown is faster and he's more athletic, which means he's more elusive. That's what Jim Brown was. So that is the thing. No, it doesn't hurt me to say that as a Steelers fan. Honest is honest, you know. And if y'all know me, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. So Jim Brown is that guy at number 3. Number 2, Walter Payton. I mean, the guy did it all. And he played on some bad Bears teams early on. Bad Bears teams. And he was still getting it done. I mean, he set the rushing record for the NFL at 275 yards, and his team was terrible. So, but Walter Payton is number 2 in my book. Could do it all. Athletic, speed, toughness, didn't run out of bounds. They gave it to him every snap. He didn't come out of the game. You know, he didn't run 3 plays and then tap out, you know, like running backs do today. I love what Marshall Faulk said about running backs not getting paid. He said because they've done it to themselves. They tap out of the game and let owners and coaches and players and executives see another guy being able to do their job. I love that answer from Marshall Faulk. Stop coming out of the game, man. Stop coming out of the game. And back in the day, guys didn't come out of the game. You can say, oh, man, things are different now, Brian. You're right. They have more nutrition. They have more technology. They have access to way more than guys did in the 80s and 90s. And yet those guys never came out of the game, and they got the ball. If it was a 10-play drive, they got the ball 7 times. Now, if it's a 10-play drive, if you're the running back, you might get it 2 or 3 plays in a row, then you come out. And then you go back in, and then you get it 2 or 3 more plays. That's the difference. So, and last but not least, Barry Sanders is the number 1 running back of all time. Barry Sanders. Everything that he did, Barry Sanders. Elusive, speed. If you put Barry Sanders' 10 years that he played against anybody else's 10 years, his is better. His is better. Somebody put a list on TikTok. Sanders, Walter Payton, Emmitt Smith, Dickerson, and Tomlinson. Oh, my God. Emmitt Smith, give me a break. Give me a break. Emmitt Smith isn't anywhere close to the top 5. Not anywhere close. And Cowboys fans, you can be as mad as you want. I don't care. Emmitt Smith is a great running back. And let me repeat that because I don't think people are going to hear me. Emmitt Smith was a great running back. But he isn't anywhere close to being the top 5 running back of all time. He's just not. He's just not. Because you can't name anything that he did that was better than somebody else. Nothing. He wasn't faster, tougher, stronger, elusive, catch the ball out of the backfield. Now, he could do all those things, but of those 5 guys, those guys are better than him. So, but that's just wait. And we're not doing wide receivers today, brother. I know you've said that about 15 times. I promise you we're not doing that today. So, we'll get to that in plenty of time. So, what do y'all think? What do y'all think? Barry over Walter is crazy. Tell me why it's crazy. What did Walter do that was better than Barry? Other than maybe if you give it to him on the goal line. I would take Walter on the goal line. I would definitely do that. But other than that, nothing. Eric Dickerson was one of the best. Yeah. That's why I had him at number 4. We'll recap it. 5 was OJ, 4 was Dickerson, 3 was Jim Brown, 2 was Walter, 1 was Barry. Adrian Peterson is not better than Barry Sanders. John Riggins. Love Riggins, but no. Not anywhere in the top 5 or top 10 of running backs. Marcus Allen was clutch in short yardage. Yes, he was. Marcus Allen's underrated, too. A lot of people may or may not like Marcus Allen, but Marcus Allen is underrated. Somebody had Sanders, Walter, Brown, Dickerson, and Peterson. Peterson is definitely in my top 7. I just like OJ better. I like the list. I like that. But I like OJ better. Where did Marcus Allen play? He played for the Raiders and for the Chiefs. But I think Marcus Allen's underrated. I think he's underrated. So, my man Al Woody says Tony Dorsett. Now, if we were talking about college running backs, I don't know that Tony Dorsett's not in the top 3. If we're just talking about just strictly college running backs, I don't know that he's not in the top 3. So, not in the top 3. I don't think that I think he has to be. But as far as NFL, I don't think Tony Dorsett gets there. I don't think he gets there. So, Amon Green is a top 15 running back? Woo! I mean, come on, Packer fans. Y'all are reaching this morning. I know Amon Green's not anywhere close to a top 15 running back. So, can Dickerson be top 3? No. I got him at 4, and I think the gap is further between Jim Brown and Dickerson. Yeah. I think Dickerson is 4. I think there's a big gap between those 3. Because I don't think the gap between the top 3 is any different. Or let me just say this. The gap between the top 3 is shorter than the gap between 3 and 4. That's what I'll say. So, the gap between 3 and 4 is larger than it is between 1 through 3. CMC is not in that conversation. So, what about my gap, boss man? What about your mother's? What about her gap? Oops. Adrian Peterson, top 3. Nah, not top 3. Not top 3. So I like Peterson, though. Oh, here's the thing. Higgins stays in Cincy. Boyd goes to Pittsburgh. I don't want Boyd in Pittsburgh. He doesn't move the needle in Pittsburgh. We don't need him. We got two guys that are better than Boyd. So why would we pay him that kind of money? So, but I like Boyd. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't do anything in Pittsburgh. We don't need him in Pittsburgh. The Steelers need to concentrate on a quarterback before they do anything. So getting a wide receiver, and if he came to Pittsburgh, he would be a wide receiver number 3. So you think Boyd will be expensive? I don't know that Boyd will be super expensive, but I think he's going to demand probably number 2 wide receiver money. And the Steelers don't need to pay him wide receiver 2 money. Like he doesn't, like, for instance, does he deserve the same contract that Deontay Johnson deserves? No. You know. And you're right. Boyd is not a number 2 receiver. He'll get overpaid. You're 1,000% correct, my man. And Boyd is a number 3. He'll get overpaid. He'll go somewhere and get a bunch of money to be a number 2, maybe even a number 1 if that team is desperate. But yeah, he wouldn't move the needle in Pittsburgh. Steelers don't need that. So, Steelers don't need that. Now here's a hot take, people. Wakan says the greatest college running back was Archie Griffin because he's a 2-time Heisman winner. Yeah, you can miss me with the 2-time Heisman winner stuff. Gino Torretta won a Heisman. Let's let that sink in. Gino Torretta won a Heisman. There's a lot of people that don't on TikTok that don't even know who the hell that is. But he won a Heisman, and it wasn't 100 years ago either, people. So winning a Heisman doesn't qualify you for being one of the best ever. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it hurts, but because you won it twice, we just seen there's people that have won the Heisman that aren't anywhere close to being the top of anything. Like I said, Gino Torretta won a Heisman, and I would bet and be willing to say that 75 to 85% of the people that are in the live on TikTok and the live on YouTube, without using Google, don't even know who the hell that is. And I don't blame you for not knowing, because he ain't really rememberable. So that's just personal, though. That got a little personal for me. I apologize. I got a little personal. Barry Sanders is the best running back of all time. We covered that, Julius. We know. Ricky Williams, Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson, Barry Sanders. Maybe in college, but not in the pros. So Dickerson had one of the greatest seasons of all time. We had Dickerson at 4. So let's get to this, man. Top 10 quarterbacks of all time. We're going to go from 10 to 1. Yes, it is subjective. Yes, this is my opinion. Yes, this is what I believe. And we can have a big debate on it. But you remember, keep it respectful. So somebody said Eli Manning top 3. I love it. So let's get into this, people. Number 10, Steve Young. I think Steve Young is one of the best. First of all, he's the best running quarterback in NFL history. Now, I know people are going to say Lamar Jackson. Some people are going to say Michael Vick. Others are going to say Randall Cunningham. Here's what I will tell you. First off, remember, quarterback. Steve Young is miles better as a quarterback than any of those guys. Let's start there. Steve Young was also a runner. He was a runner. One of the greatest plays in NFL history. You can go look it up, that run that he had against the Vikings. Steve Young was a runner. And he was extremely accurate. So when people try to tell you that the greatest running quarterback of all time was Randall Cunningham or Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson. You just tell them, no, Steve Young. And again, me as a black man, I'm not supposed to say that. I'm not supposed to say that it's Steve Young, but it's Steve Young. Because again, as a quarterback, he's miles better than any of them. Miles better. Doesn't mean those guys weren't good. It just means that these guys were better. These guys were better. Number 9, Drew Brees. I love Brees. Didn't have the biggest arm. Wasn't the biggest dude. I shouldn't like Brees because my last football game that I ever played, he ended up breaking my heart and stole a game from us in the Alamo Bowl in 1998. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But Brees, I love Brees. I love Brees. So Brees is at number 9. Like I said, not the biggest guy, didn't have the biggest arm, but extremely accurate. Extremely accurate. Drew Brees, number 9. And not to mention, you just look at some of the stats. Look, at some point, you can't deny stats. And Drew Brees threw for a hell of a lot of yards. Now, here's where it gets dicey. At number 8, I got Brett Favre. Some people are going to say Brees is better than Favre. If you got a game on the line, I just don't know. I just don't know. Favre, look, the gunslinger mentality. Some people don't like it. I do. I like it. I like that mentality. Give me a gunslinger. Now, maybe not to win a game at the end, but it is what it is. Brett Favre was that guy. We don't have to like him as a person for what he did to the state of Mississippi, and I'm not going to get into all of that. But you know what? I had a list of all-time running backs, and OJ was on that top 5 list. So if I can have OJ, damn it, I can have Brett Favre. Brett Favre at number 8. Brett Favre at number 8. Number 7 on the list, Johnny Unitas. Now, a lot of people say, well, I never saw him play. And yet, no, clearly I didn't see Johnny Unitas play football. And most people that live on this earth didn't see Johnny Unitas play football. But they do have a thing called YouTube. And a lot of people are watching me on that platform right now. You can use it to watch Johnny Unitas. You can see. Number 1, you can look up stats. And I know his stats aren't going to be as good as what they are in the modern passing game. But at the time, when he played, he invented the modern passing game. It was him. It was him. So Johnny Unitas comes in at number 7. Again, he's not going to wow you. You can look at his stats and you think, oh, man, this guy was terrible. Well, they ran the ball 80% to 85% of the time back in those days. So if you don't throw it a lot, your stats aren't going to be as gaudy as others. It was just a product of the times. Doesn't mean he wasn't good, though. Not to mention, back in those days, he called his own plays. So there's that. There's that. Number 6. And I waffled back and forth on this, and I have for a while, but I got to give the credence to talent. So at number 6, I got John Elway. And you'll see what I mean when I pull up number 5. But John Elway wasn't a great high percentage passer. A lot of people nowadays, especially young people, don't believe that completion percentage is a thing. Yeah, nowadays completion percentage is a thing. Back when John Elway played, it wasn't, because you threw the ball down the field. You know, Elway, you threw the ball 25 yards down the field. That's the routes. You know, there was never crossing routes. You were never running shallows, shallow crosses. That wasn't even around when Elway played. You aren't doing that. They were throwing that ball down the field. Down the field. So at number 6, John Elway. Not to mention, John Elway could move around. He had a cannon for an arm. Great quarterback. Won 2 Super Bowls. one of them, I know people are going to say, well, Terrell Davis got him a Super Bowl, and he did. But go look at who the MVP of the second Super Bowl was. John Elway's last game of his career. Go look at his stats from that game. Terrell Davis barely played. He barely played. So, because the Falcons said, we are not going to let Terrell Davis beat us. And they didn't. But John Elway did. Number 5, Dan Marino. Dan Marino. Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. Let's get that underway. Let's get that out of the way. He did not win a Super Bowl. I understand that. He didn't win a Super Bowl. But first of all, if you look at Dan Marino's talent, just his talent alone, the man was incredible. There's an argument to be made that Dan Marino is the most talented quarterback to ever play football. You can make that argument. If you're just talking about talent, yeah, you can say Dan Marino is the most talented guy that's ever played the quarterback position. And you wouldn't be lying. You wouldn't be blasphemous. You wouldn't. Now, I know there's a lot of young people out there that always say that winning, is not a quarterback stat. Well, yeah, it is. When you're splitting hairs between guys, at some point, winning has to matter. At some point, you can't just say, well, it's a team stat. Well, okay. Well, Marino he got to one Super Bowl, and they never won. And his team wasn't good enough. But you know what? My philosophy is, hey, at some point, if you're that dude, you got to put your team on your back, and you got to get them there. In 1985, Marino had that opportunity, and they choked it away against New England. Because I've said this to everybody. If the Dolphins don't choke against the Patriots in the AFC Championship game and they win, I think they beat the Bears again. And this whole myth of the 85 Bears being the greatest team ever, nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. But Dan Marino, a cannon for an arm. Not only a cannon for an arm, his accuracy was great, but his release, Lord have mercy. The release is incredible. Just incredible. The ball got out of his hands so fast. And that was back in the day where you didn't put Dan Marino in today. You don't even have to say give him today's receivers. Give him coked up Mark Clayton and Mark Duper. Give him that and let him play with today's rules and throw the ball around as many times as they throw it around today. Dan Marino might throw for 6,500 yards. And you can't deny it. 60, because if Drew Brees can throw for that many yards, Dan Marino can't? Give me a break. Give me a break. Of course he could. Marino, number 5. And number 4, yeah, I'm going to do it, Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to do it, Patrick Mahomes. You could say Mahomes is at 3. But he's still got a ways to go, because if his career ended today, I'm not going to put him in the top 3. But that's the only reason. So he's got a little ways to go. He's still got even if he doesn't win another Super Bowl, he's got to start piling up some miles to get into the top 3. He's got to start putting up just more yards. Longevity has to be a part of this too. Longevity matters. I know it doesn't matter when it comes to LeBron James, but it matters to real, sensible people when you're talking about the greatest of all time. Longevity matters. And Mahomes has got to get there. But as of right now, yeah, I got him at 4. So, pure arm talent, says my man Ari. Pure arm talent. Marino and Mahomes are on another level. Yeah. So, that's crazy. But yeah, number 4, Patrick Mahomes. Number 3, Peyton Manning. Look, Manning, you can't deny what Peyton Manning did in the regular season. Peyton Manning might be the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. And matter of fact, I think there's a strong argument that you can say that Peyton Manning is the greatest regular season quarterback in the history of the NFL. Now, that didn't always translate into the postseason. We saw it several times. They had the best team and could not figure it out in the postseason. They just could not figure it out. You can say that other teams were better. You can say, I don't care what, that his defense wasn't always good. Yeah, you can. But that's just the way that I look at it. That's just the way that I look at it. And I know people are saying, no Rodgers. No. I had Rodgers at 11. It was between him and Young. No, don't have Rodgers. I don't have Rodgers. Again, that doesn't mean that I don't think Rodgers is good, but I don't believe that Aaron Rodgers is one of the top 10 quarterbacks of all time. I don't believe that. You can say I'm nuts. You can say I'm crazy, and I'm not going to fight you, but there's 10 people on the list that I would take before Aaron Rodgers. That's just me. That's just my opinion. Just my opinion. Now, 2-1, I've felt this way forever. I've got a philosophy on why I feel this way, and I'm going to continue to feel this way until somebody can change my mind. And I'm willing to listen. But until somebody can change my mind, my criteria doesn't change. My criteria does not change. So, and number 2 is Tom Brady. I got Brady at 2. And I know, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you don't know ball. Oh, you're crazy. No, it doesn't have anything to do with it. It's, I prefer Joe Montana over Tom Brady. And I just look at it as far as errors are concerned. So I look at it as far as errors. I just know that it was tougher to play quarterback when Joe Montana was playing than when it was when Tom Brady was playing. Now, that's not Tom Brady's fault. He doesn't make the rules. He didn't make the rules. But isn't the argument for Michael Jordan being the GOAT is because he went to 6 titles and he won all 6? Isn't that's the number one argument that everybody makes, is that he went to 6 and he won 6. Well, why can't you say that about Joe Montana? I mean, he went to 4. He won 4. He was the MVP of 3. He should have been the MVP of 4. They gave it to Jerry Rice. Why can't you make the same argument? So that's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. I just believe Joe Montana played Gordon. Look, if it's about stats and everybody wants to make it all about stats, then number one, Brady played longer because he played in an era where you can play longer. Now, he took care of his body, don't get me wrong, but he also played in an era where you can't be hit or it's a flag, that you can't be touched or they throw a flag on you. Hell, the year they went to the Super Bowl, remember when they beat the Chiefs and Mahomes, the first year Mahomes started? There was a roughing the passer penalty because a defensive lineman was being blocked, and he put his hands up to block a pass. The guy pushes him, and because his hand came down and hit him in the face mask, roughing the passer. Come on, man. That's the kind of era. Joe Montana played in an era where they could have literally decapitated him, and the ref would have just picked his head up and say, tough. That's tough. So that's tough. Sorry you got decapitated, but there's no flag. There's no nothing. I know it came 4 seconds after you threw the ball. You have a stronger neck. That's what the referee would say. Have a stronger neck. Sorry. That's the kind of era he played in. And again, I don't blame Tom Brady for that. I don't blame him. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Some people saying that Manning is better than both. Just never had the team to prove. Yeah, Manning had the team to prove it. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Manning got worse in the playoffs. And I'll stick by Manning is the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. I'll argue anybody that. But when it came to the playoffs, he wasn't a playoff riser. He just wasn't. He wasn't. And it's just the truth. It's just the truth. So that's the list. Steve Young at 10, Breeze at 9, Favre at 8, Unitas at 7, Elway at 6, Marino at 5, Mahomes at 4, Manning at 3, Brady at 2, Montana at 1. That's the list. That's the list. Argue amongst yourselves. Tell me I don't know ball. Scream. Throw something at your phone or at your computer. Do all of that. I'd love to get into it in the Q&A section. Let me know anything that you want to talk about. We are free game. I'm going to get to some of these comments here. My man Sideshow says he likes the list, but Mahomes 6, Elway 5, Marino 4. That's not horrible. That's not horrible. And I put Mahomes higher because to start his career, he's accomplished more. If you just said, okay, take the first 6 years of their career and it ended with Elway and Marino, where do you have them? Well, Mahomes would be higher than that. He would be higher. It's kind of the same way when people try to throw Emmitt Smith into the conversation. And I say, well, hold on a second. When they say, well, he was better than Barry Sanders. No, he wasn't. Barry Sanders played 10 years. You can take the best 10 years that Emmitt had and put those up against Barry Sanders, and Barry Sanders wins. He whips them. Period. End of story. End of story. So that's why I have the list the way that I always give you a reason. I'll give you a reason. You probably don't agree, and people may not agree, but I will definitely give you a reason. I'll always do that. My man, Pat Cockrell. I agree with this list for the most part. I'd have Rodgers in there at 8 and Favre at 7. But who are you taking out? That's a good question, Pat. If you put Favre in, are you putting him ahead of Steve Young? I mean, maybe. I just don't know. And I could be biased. I just like Steve Young. I like Steve Young. I think Steve Young is underrated. I think he's underrated. Underrated. And again, it doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers isn't any good. That doesn't mean that at all. I just think these guys are better. And I had to put Johnny Unitas in the list somewhere for what he did. I can't not count somebody because they played in a running era. I can't discredit what they did and what they meant and how good they actually were just because you were on a team in a game of football where at the time you ran the ball 85% of the time. So you can't knock them for that. Can't knock them for that. So, yeah. Ari, yes, Manning was a huge dropper in the playoffs. That's the misconception. Manning didn't have the team. Well, hold on. He did have the team. Hell, they were going 14-2 every year. What do you mean they didn't have the team? Of course they had the team. He just didn't play. You know how many interceptions he was throwing in the playoffs? That wasn't his team's fault. Can't blame the team for that. Sometimes you just got to blame the guy. So sometimes you just got to blame the guy. What kept Roethlisberger out? He wasn't as good as these other guys. I mean, yes, I'm a diehard Steelers fan. Yes, all of you all should go check out Steelers Almighty anywhere that you get a podcast, anywhere that you're on social media. Go check out and subscribe to Steelers Almighty, by the way. Please do that. But Ben wasn't as good as the rest of these guys. Doesn't mean Ben was bad, but let's just be honest. Ben was not as good as the rest of these guys. He wasn't. Great. First ballot Hall of Famer, for sure. But when you're splitting hairs, Ben wasn't as good as these guys. He just wasn't. He was a winner. He was tough. Had a cannon for an arm. He was smart. But sometimes there's levels to stuff, and he's just not on these guys' level. He's just not. So, yeah, and the rules are definitely helping the guys that are playing right now. The rules are helping. And here's a thing that I'll just throw out there. And you can say that I'm biased. That's fine. But if you never had to worry about Lawrence Taylor, anybody that was able to play as well as they did and had to worry about Lawrence Taylor, I'm going to give you a leg up. And Joe Montana had to worry about Lawrence Taylor. Marino, Elway, they had to worry about a Lawrence Taylor. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Because in my opinion, and I'm sure we'll do a list like this when it gets closer to the season, the greatest football player in NFL history to me is Lawrence Taylor. That's who the best player is of all time. Better than Montana, better than Brady, better than Jerry Rice, better than Barry Sanders. The greatest football player of all time is Lawrence Taylor. That's what I believe. That's what I believe. And the reason, I can give you the reasons, is because Lawrence Taylor literally created a position on the other side of the ball and made it the second most important position in all of football. That's what he did. He created the importance of left tackle. Before, you just had stiffs over there playing. You had guys. No. Lawrence Taylor said, you better put your best athlete on the offensive line on this side, a big guy that can move. Because if you don't, I'm wrecking your play and I'm crushing your quarterback. It was Lawrence Taylor that created the left tackle. He did that all by himself. He created it. He made the left tackle. That's why it's the second highest paid position. And it's the second most important position on a football field. Left tackle. Now, you could say that right tackle, because nowadays these pass rushers, these crazy pass rushers, come from both sides. But Lawrence Taylor is the one who created that. And he didn't even play on that side of the field. So that's why I think that. That's why I always give the leg up to Montana. But don't get me wrong, Montana was crazy good. Crazy good. Peak versus longevity, always been tough to argue. Yeah, it's always tough. And some people like peak more than longevity, and some other people like longevity over peak. My thing is, if you were at your peak, if it only lasted a season or two, I mean, to me, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. It's got to be longer than that. It's got to be longer than that. So, where do I rank Warren Moon? Top 20 for sure. Top 15. Top 15. Warren Moon was crazy good. Didn't play on great teams. Didn't win. But as far as arm talent, I mean, shoot. Name 20 quarterbacks that had a better arm than Warren Moon. Better yet, do this. Name 3 quarterbacks that threw a prettier pass or a prettier spiral than Warren Moon. Name 3, because you can't do it. You can't do it. Not Brady, not Montana, definitely not Manning. Name 3 that threw a prettier pass that came like a rifle. Not Mahomes, none of those guys. None of those guys threw a prettier catchable ball than Warren Moon. So, Pierre Lamb, would you put Marino higher if he had a ring or two? 1,000% I would. 1,000% I would. That's the thing is, I'm not that person. And look, it's the younger generation that says this. Oh, winning is a team stat. It is. And you have to have a good team to win. Nobody wins in any sport, any team sport, I should say. Nobody wins alone. Nobody wins alone. But when you're splitting hairs, winning has to matter. It has to. Otherwise, why are you out there? Why are you doing it? At some point, look at Patrick Mahomes this past year. Now, granted, his defense was crazy. But he elevated his team in a way and put them on his back and they went and won a Super Bowl. Look at them last year. I mean, Juju Smith was their best receiver. And we're not talking about Travis Scott. I'm talking about true receiver. Juju Smith. Who was their best receiver this year? Rashee Rice? And he was able to elevate them. And when the chips were down, he made the plays. That's the difference.
I make nothing.
You know, when the chips were down, he is the one who made the plays to win the games. So, yes, winning has to matter. Now, Marino was so good, I still have him in the top 5. But if he won a Super Bowl or 2, I might have him at 2. Who knows? Because Marino was that good. He was that good. I think people, again, he played a long time ago, relatively. And the misconception, if you don't win, that means you're not any good. That's not what that means. That's not what that means. Not even a little bit. So, what does Mahomes need to do to become number 1? Just keep playing. Just keep playing. Keep playing and keep having good seasons. He don't even have to have great seasons. Just continue to play for another 8 years. Another 8 years. If that gets you 2 or 3 more MVPs and another Super Bowl, Mahomes can be number 1 on this list, people. I know people said that he can't. Yes, he can. Yes, he can. And you don't have to have the most rings to be the best. Because I'll tell you this, there isn't a soul out there that thinks that Bill Russell is the greatest player. Even Boston fans don't think that Bill Russell is the greatest player of all time. But he's got 11 rings. 11. I mean, that's 5 more than Michael Jordan. 6 more than LeBron. No, take that back. 7 more than LeBron. And 6 more, I think. Yeah, 5 more than Jordan. So, yeah, and nobody thinks he's the best. Nobody. So, that's just my point. It's not, everything isn't all about rings. It matters when you're splitting hairs, but it can't just be about that. So, can't just be the world about that. So, here we go. Tonight, hey, people, the Creator Hour tonight with Hoop Social. Your man Big B is going to be on that. It's a great show. Make sure you all come and check it out. It is at 8 p.m. Central Time tonight. The Creator Hour. Make sure you all go show up and show out. I will be on. It will be fun. So I appreciate everybody giving that time to come and check it out. We got a couple of different platforms that I'm going to shout out today. Number 1, again, Monday through Friday, Big B Daily. We are always here. Come and check us out. We appreciate all the support. Number 2, Steelers Almighty. We just started it. I think it was a month ago. Everybody go anywhere that you are on social media, consume podcasts, anywhere that you do that, go and follow, like, subscribe, Steelers Almighty. It's brand new. And even if you don't like the Steelers, maybe you hate the Steelers, you're going to love the content that we put out there. Well-produced show. Go and check us out and have a listen and help support your boy. And number 3, I also have a Big 12 show that I do Tuesday through Friday. It's on YouTube. Make sure you go and check that out. It's called the Big 12 Insiders. If you want to look it up on YouTube, it's put the little @ symbol, Big 12 Insiders. Been doing that since February. Good show. We cover basically football and basketball about the Big 12. That comes on at 1 p.m. Central Time, Tuesday through Friday live. Even if you can't catch it live, make sure you go check it out. Make sure you go check it out. So I appreciate all you guys. Thank you. Couple other questions here. Where would I rank Randall Cunningham? I mean, Randall was an okay quarterback, or let me say good. I'm not trying to disrespect Randall, but I don't have Randall in the top 20. I don't even have Randall in the top 25. There's 25 guys that you can get to before Randall Cunningham. And that's not a knock on him. But other than a couple of seasons, there were plenty of guys that were better than him. Like Phillip Rivers. Would you rather have Randall Cunningham or Phillip Rivers? It's stuff like that you got to, or Dan Fouts. Dan Fouts isn't on this list. You taking Dan Fouts over Randall Cunningham? 1,000%. 1,000%. So LTB Sports says, I can't find an angle that puts Manning over Mahomes at this point on my list. Well, he's got more MVPs and he's got the longevity. Now, he doesn't have the Super Bowls. But Manning's got 2. Mahomes has 3. And he's got more yards and more touchdowns. And let's not act like Manning doesn't have spectacular regular seasons and a whole bunch of them. Because he does. He does. That's why I said Mahomes got a little ways to get to that point. Doesn't mean he can't get there. But if his career stopped today, you saying that he's better than Manning? No, he's not. He's got to do more. Especially today, longevity, quarterback position is a position that you can play for a long time. So to be in that conversation, that's just I feel that way. You got to do more. Yeah, Marino doesn't get the love that he should get, man. He doesn't get the love that he should get. So Marino put up 5,000 yards and nearly 50 touchdowns in 1984. People were genuinely worried he broke the game. Yeah, that's why I always say, look at that 85 Bears team. All Miami did was say, oh, you're going to come out in this bear front? Okay, well, we're going to spread you out and make you cover us, and you can't do it. He made that Bears defense look ridiculous. Just look ridiculous. Ate them alive. And had they not choked, and he choked, don't get me wrong, against the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, I think they beat the Bears again, and nobody's even talking about the 85 Bears. Nobody's even talking about them. One of the most overrated teams of all time, the 85 Bears, in my opinion. Doesn't mean they weren't good, but anybody that had a little bit of offensive intellect, they made them look silly. Marino made them look silly. So here's the thing. Give Mahomes just one of the receivers Manning had in Indy for his career. You could say that. But at the beginning of Manning's career, you could also say give him the rules that you have to play by that Mahomes has to play by now. Because Manning didn't get to play by those rules. Where if you breathe on a quarterback, if you touch a receiver anywhere, if you hit a receiver going across the middle, he didn't get to play with those rules. So that goes both ways. It goes both ways. Agree, Mahomes needs the longevity. If he retired tomorrow, Manning has the body of work and accolades. So, exactly. That's the whole thing. It's not that Mahomes isn't going to pass him if he keeps playing well. He will. But at some point, stats have to matter too. I don't want to say it's all stats or it's no stats. I think it's a collective of everything, but stats have to matter. They absolutely have to matter. So, and if they do, which we think they do, then Mahomes got some work to do. That's all. He's got some work to do. I can't believe this is a real question, but I'm going to throw it out there. Is Eli or Peyton? Eli did beat the Patriots teams. Ryan, I love you, my man. I love you. But there's no way on God's green earth do you really believe that this is a conversation, that this is a comparison, that Eli Manning is in the same class as his brother Peyton. There's no way you really believe that. There's no way. And like I said, we love you, but there isn't a possible way that you can believe that. Even Giants fan, even the biggest Giants fan in the entire universe, they don't believe that. So, they don't believe that.